everybody, this is Pragtijani from Prag Inflex. Today's show is for people who love photography. Today we are talking about Shri Mayuresh Moghe sir, who is a versatile artist. He is a photographer, an educator, a voiceover artist, who obtained a degree from MFA from the University of Kentucky, USA. With more than 18 years of experience as an educator and a visual artist, privileged to have our own Shri Mayuresh Moghe sir from Pune. Mayuresh sir, welcome to the show. How are you feeling?
Thank you, Prayag. Feeling really nice about this. Hello to all your listeners also. This is actually the first time that I'm appearing on any kind of podcast. Yeah. So really excited about it and looking forward to our conversation.
So this is my first time I'm featuring my own self from my college. So
yeah, and I'm also doing it for the first time for a student. So
yeah. So my first question for you is, so primarily you are an art practitioner, so please tell us about the place of photography and how it blends with the other forms of art.
Well, see, how I look at it is that, I mean, yes, I think you're asking this question based on where I say that my photography kind of blends with other art forms, yes, or it transcends just what photography is. But how I look at it is photography itself is also a form of art, right? It's just one of the mediums that artists choose to express themselves. Say, for example, a painter might be using or he uses paints, brushes, canvas, and things like that. So these are his tools to express visually what a painter tries to express. Similarly, a photographer is just making a choice of using these tools, which is the camera, film or digital or whatever, that doesn't matter. There are many different mediums and formats that photographers can use. There are many photographers who also work with different mediums at a given point of time. So it's just that they are using these tools. So for me, photographer also is an artist. Yes, the medium that they have chosen is a camera. Or images that are made through the by using the fundamentals of photography, which is light and lights and So that's the only difference for me. So it's just a medium of expression. That's all.
Right. So my second question for you is, how does a photographer differentiate being just portrait of a scene and art and object?
This has happened in photography, I think, more so in the recent times, where what you are referring to is where a photographer is someone who, at least in the beginning years of photography, it was like that, where you are probably going out with the camera and then just responding in a way to what you are seeing around you, be it street photography, be it landscape photography, candid photography, portraiture, or whatever genres you want to classify it in. So in the beginning, photography was like that. I think even today, people who take up photography newly or are beginners at photography, they would indulge in this kind of photography where you have a camera. Now, of course, cell phones and these have made it even easier and accessible. So it is that you respond to something. Oh, this is what I like. This is what I think can look good. So and that is why I take a picture of it.
So they experiment a lot.
Experiment a lot, but that is how you are essentially reacting to what you are seeing. Now, over the years, how photography has transformed is that, again, I would give you the example of a painter. Like, painter starts with a blank canvas, right? And then he gradually puts in what he wants to paint. Similarly has happened with photography, though the basic fundamental of photography will never change, where the picture is made in an instant. When you press the button, you get a picture. But there is a lot of planning that happens in photography also now. So what I would say that these pictures are now in contemporary photography, contemporary art or contemporary photography is, if we have to put a timeline on it, it is about the work that has been made after say 1970, 80 onwards. So what has happened is many of these pictures are actually staged images, they are planned beforehand, they are conceptualized beforehand. There are sketches and storyboards that are made.
So they plan,
and this happens in commercial photography also. I'm not just I'm not just talking about fine art
Fine arts,
photography.
yeah.
Even commercial shoots are also planned very, very meticulously. So that is the major change that has happened. And so I'm just sorry, can you refer to your question again?
Yeah.
Because I kind of...
How does a photograph differentiate being just a portrayal of a scene?
Right.
And
So that's how it is. Like, initial days it was just that I'm doing something, I'm finding something nice or an interesting person, interesting location, whatever.
Yeah.
I just go and take a picture of it. It was very random in that sense. There is photography that is still happening in that fashion. Like if you think about something like travel photography, when you are going out somewhere, you are just responding to what you are seeing around you. So that is also existing. I'm not saying that it has completely changed. But when you say that, how does it differentiate between just a portrayal of a scene versus something more as an art object? When we say an art object, also I would say when I was talking about that these shoots and these things are very, very meticulously planned, all the details. There are people like Gregory Crutzen who are working with a large scale production budget, not just the budget but also the scale of the production itself is very huge, where he's actually doing it on the streets, where he's taking in help of the city council and police and fire brigade to actually shut certain parts of the city and street so that he can actually shoot. So it's like a film being made just for one single picture.
So what kind of pictures does he take?
They are called as, you can classify it as narrative photography, where there is a story to each image, So if you look at his picture or his work, you would feel as if they are very cinematic, and I don't usually like the word cinematic, but I'm using it here. And there is a particular reason why I'm using it, is because as I was saying, just because of the scale and how he works, you will actually feel that this is a grab taken from a film sequence, So he has that level of production and that level of detailing that he's going into the images. Talking about art object also, that was the last part of your question. When photography began, it was, you take a picture, though there were negatives in those days. I'm talking about when photography became really popular, and 35mm being the most popular and the most used medium, format rather. So you take a picture, you develop the roll, and then you print it. Now, in the initial days also, the size of the print was, there were certain fixed sizes. You would see normally images that are about 4 inches by 6 inches or 8 inches by 10 inches if you're making an enlargement. Maximum it would go to about 16-20 or so, 16 inches by 20 inches. And you would also see that there was a particular way of displaying those. You would put a mat board around or a mount around the picture.
Like a border.
Like a border. And then you would frame it, and then you would hang it up on the wall. Even people like Ansel Adams, who were using a large format camera, mostly he worked with an 8x10 camera, so the negative was that big, 8 inches by 10 inches. But then most of his prints were also contact prints, where the negative used to be in contact with the paper. So basically what you mean by contact printing is that the size of the negative and the final size of the print are the same. Right? So those images were also like 8x10 in size. So the scale I was talking about. Now, what has happened over the years is that the scale of printing has also gone up. So when this started happening, initially people were not really used to see paintings. We are used to seeing really big frescoes, Michelangelo and these people, if we go, they painted like huge ceilings of cathedrals, huge walls,
churches,
panels in churches and all those things. So paintings we are used to seeing at that scale. Photography.
So those paintings were of what era?
This mostly, the couple of names that I mentioned, those were from the Renaissance period. This is like between 14th to 16th century or so. That was when everything, and along with that, art also saw a revival.
Right.
That is why the word Renaissance. And still we study or refer to, when we want to refer to paintings, or probably painting as a craft, as a technique was, there is a little bit of debate about this, but Renaissance period was one where you could really see one of the best technique, one of the best artists at work.
New strokes and
yes, everything in terms of how they used all the things. There were newer pigments, newer paints also coming in.
Yes.
What they were painting,
new
the
colors
topics were also changing. The themes of their paintings were changing.
Style of portraits were also
everything was so. And photography is heavily based on painting. Even if you someone might deny it, saying that no, photography is very different, but you can't really ignore the fact that photography is based of painting. And so coming back to the scale aspect of it, this was around 1950s and 60s where we started getting a larger scale in photography, where pictures started becoming really big. As an example, I can quote Richard Avedon's exhibition, or a series of work that he has done, which is American West, the American West.
Yes.
And he printed these portraits which were really huge size. I mean, you're looking at the face portrait is essentially a face of a person, or they were mostly mid shots, not exactly close-ups. But they are printed about 10 feet by 6 feet and that size,
Almost half of a human size.
Almost that, or maybe bigger also at times, So you are really getting intimidated when you're looking at that kind of photograph. Again, because people are not used to seeing photographs like that.
Right.
Photographs before that were really personal. It was an album.
Talking
about object again. Album also is an object, right?
Yeah.
And all of us have our images. When we were child, we have images of family functions and things like that. And even today, I think though everything has become digital now and everything is long on the computer, we still cherish that. When you pull out your old albums and start looking at them, it's a very different feeling. I mean, there is the factor of nostalgia associated with, no doubt, with it. But apart from that, it is this feeling that you really get, that you are holding something in hand, something that is tangible.
Feels like a book.
Feels like a book. So photo books are another aspect of it, where you are really turning photographs into an object.
Yeah.
And photo books again is one, I would say, one kind of output that a lot of photographers choose. See, it again depends on the kind of work that you are doing. But there are so many people. There is Stephen Shore, there is Alex Soth, Andre Cortez. All these people have made some excellent photo books. Also, their work, the way they work. Now, earlier I was talking about planning as well.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of photographers who would plan now that I'm going to work on a certain project based on a certain theme, and turn that into a series of photographs. Now these series also go on from, it could be anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months to maybe a few years. A photographer is working on a certain series. And then when you have a series and you end up with, say, like 70, 80 really good photographs, then probably photo book is the best option to really present it to your audience. Martin Parr is another a British photographer who has a lot of photo books. So and that is one of, now you see these days also wedding albums are also becoming into photo books, right? I mean, we spoke about albums. Those have also changed their appearance, how they look, how they are printed, how they are designed, everything has changed. So yeah, there is that, this thing to it, that when you are holding some kind of object in your hand for a photograph, that does make a difference. Even today, if you see, even though, of course, digital is the most popular again, I mean, we mostly look at images now on computers or on our phones, on social media or otherwise. But it's a different feeling. If you ask me, I would suggest this to all the young photographers, print your images. As much as possible. I'm not saying print all of them.
All of them.
But print a few selected ones and see best ones and see how it feels really to hold that picture and to be looking at it. And I'm sure that everyone here will get a different feeling when you look at your image in a print form.
Yes.
Plus, you will also understand what are the technicalities that you should, or the difficulties that you face when actually an image in the digital form transforms into a print. So that's one thing. And making a photo book these days is easy. There are many online versions also available. So yeah, and then of course, then speaking of this, how I talked about the scale and things, how images are displayed. Of course, I cannot make a frame for a photograph that is 8 feet by 10 feet in size, right? So then photographs started being displayed in a way that they are pasted directly onto the wall. Wolfgang Tillmans is one photographer who does that a lot.
So he paints on the wall, or
no? These are just pictures that are prints made, and they are just pasted onto the wall. There's no frame, there's no map, which was, I should say, like the traditional way of displaying photographs. So that has also changed over time. And of course, we know all these things also now. More if we think about the consumer market. You can print images on t-shirts, you can print images on cups, you can print images wherever you want, or now on cakes.
So Cubism is also a part of that, prints which he used to hang on the walls to showcase every resolution type of thing.
The Cubism, I think, is how you're referring this to, I'll just try to kind of speculate here a little bit. Cubism was also an art movement which originated again in painting. And this was, the pioneers were mainly two artists. It was Pablo Picasso and George Braque. So now what these two people said that, of course this all happens in a sequence. So there were movements like we talked about Renaissance, then there was one major which was Impressionism and Post-Impressionism, which kind of changed what painting is. And when I'm saying this, I understand that I'm taking like huge leaps. So we are leaving a lot of gaps. There was a lot of things that happened in between these 400 years or so. But just to kind of highlight, and also because we are trying to relate everything to photography here in the end. I mean, if you have to talk about painting, that's an and I'm not really an expert on that one, and it's a very different volume. But yeah, coming back to Cubism. So what Picasso and Braque believed was that if, say, I have to make a portrait or paint a portrait, they believe that, well, I cannot really show all the aspects of this character by painting that person just only from one vantage point in one single way. So what they would do is they would take different perspectives of the same person, object, whatever they were painting. It could be as simple as something like that chair. So this chair obviously is going to look different when I look at it from different angles. So their paintings were sort of this, where they painted this chair how it would look from different angles, and then kind of put all that together and brought it back, synthesized into making that into a single chair.
Kind of a collage.
Kind of a collage, yes. Collage was something that originated also
from Cubism.
Collage also comes from the French word rather, coller, which means to collect. So you are collecting different things and putting them together as a single object. So now obviously, what you were referring to earlier is, yes, when I am painting these things from different viewpoints, from different, I'm also looking at it from different distances, right? So there are details that are going to be produced to a very degree. But when I'm also putting that together, again quoting the example of the chair, if I'm putting that together as a single chair, it's going to look very odd. Right? So that was how the paintings looked. You know, when you looked at them, they were a little strange to look at. They looked weird. But this was the idea behind it. And yes, that has come into photography. A lot of photographers have used it in a different way. Also because of the advent of digital photography, Photoshop coming in, you could do these things I wouldn't say easily, but they were a little more accessible.
Right.
You know, I could just now I can sit on a desktop, and if I have 100 images I want to combine it, I can quickly do it. But there were also people who did this in the pre-Photoshop era, but that was of course a lot of manual work, a lot of labor.
So this became easier for everyone.
This became a little easier because of the digital, whatever tools that we have now.
Yeah.
And there are kind of new tools are coming up every, every 6 months or maybe.
So sir, how you find process of photography from the ancient cameras to the new digital world?
How do I find it?
Yes.
Okay, before how I find it, I think let us say this, that anything that comes to birth in this world, I'm trying not to be too philosophical. Anything undergoes a transformation, right? As technology is evolving, we are living in this world, and all the things around us are changing.
Right.
So also is with photography. So at times, I think these are things that you can't help, you can't do anything about it. And I am saying that in a very positive way. That these changes are going to happen.
Right.
All right. And what is really changing? I mean, if you compare a film camera versus a digital camera, what has changed is only how the image is recorded. What else has changed?
Right.
Nothing. And in our earlier point, we were discussing that Photoshop if we talk about Photoshop also. So I was just saying that there are people like Jerry Ulsman who were doing what Photoshop does for you with black and white negatives. Or even before that, Henry Peach Robinson was doing that, where he has made montages using 6-7 different negatives. So people have always been doing that. It's just that technology has changed. Yes, some things have become a little more, a little easier maybe. We were saying that accessibility has become much better because of these new technologies. So I don't know, for me it is just a new method maybe that is being used for making an image. But other than that, nothing has changed. I mean, a street photographer still, whether he uses a film camera or digital camera, doesn't matter. He's still going out on the streets and trying to capture those candid moments. Somebody like Gregory Crewdson, he shoots on film, but if he decides to shoot digital, his images, the way he plans, the way he works, that's probably not going to change. The only thing is the tool again that he's using just to record the image. That is changing. But yes, Photoshop definitely has opened a lot more avenues. There is more that we can do.
It's like a Brahmastra.
Kind of, yeah. But see, we don't know what next that we don't.
Right.
So I say, shayad we will have versions of Brahmastra also. So yeah, like I said, it's just a part of changing things as all the other things change. For a creator, for an artist, it is your art, what you are trying to express, the content that you are trying to bring through this. That is more important. And you know, as these things change around you, it is very natural that you will figure out, you know, what medium or what technology you are going to use for your work. That will also change over time. Specifically in my case, I started with film photography, analog, as is the word that is used. Analog was never a word when I started, right? Analog तो आया ही digital हुआ इसलिए ये analog बन गया. नहीं तो it was just photography, no? Anyway, jokes apart. So I started there, then I shifted to digital, and now all the personal work that I'm doing, because I'm doing mostly personal work only these days, I still prefer to do that on film. Recently I have instant film also, Polaroid,
Right.
that has also seen a revival.
Yes, Instax.
So Instax, Fuji Instax is one of my favorite cameras.
Right.
Because it's easy to carry around. It gives you that result instantly.
That printing feel.
Yeah. When I started using it, my daughter loved it so much. The print coming off out from the camera. And for a period, I was using it only because she was so happy about it. Because she used to be very disappointed when I used to take a picture on the film camera. And she was like, show me. And no, you can't see the picture.
You have to wait.
You have to wait. So she used to get disappointed. She was what, 2.5, 3 years old. And then, so this was so nice for me. So all the pictures that I take of her or whatever I do around these days, around her is mostly on the Instax. So yeah, it changes. And what happens is, as I began to use the Instax, you see that your work also changes a little bit. So this is the other case where you are choosing a certain medium which you like, and then you're using that medium or that format, and then you kind of gravitate towards the work that will suit that medium. So it both ways. Sometimes it's the work that will make you choose the medium. Sometimes it's the medium that will, take you in a certain direction as far as the work is concerned. So both has happened to me. So I don't think there is much this thing to be made about changing technologies. I don't think that, wow, digital is fantastic, and I'm also not of the school of thought that no, digital is not real photography. Real photography to film ke zamane mein tha. No, I'm completely okay because I kind of use both of these. Yeah, I use scanner also to make an image, so there is no camera really involved.
Right.
But the technology that the scanner uses is still the same as what the camera does. No, light hai, sensor hai. Light is falling on the sensor and image is being made.
Exactly.
So that doesn't change.
So the next question is, as an educator, how you find the new generation is progressing in this art?
Honestly speaking, I feel there is a huge disparity here. We see some young artists doing some amazing work also, and coming back to a couple of earlier questions or the discussions that we had, where they are really using new ways to present their work, new forms to present their work. They are making use of these new technologies to their advantage as much as they can. And on the other hand, also because photography has become so accessible. I don't want to say that everybody thinks that they are a photographer now. Also, somewhere it has worked against photography. Because people don't really understand. While we were talking about all these things, that there is a lot of planning involved. There is, even if you are doing a shoot for a client, many times the clients don't understand what is actually involved in this. How do you are going for an industrial shoot, you tell them that these walls need to be cleaned up, these things have to be done.
Yes.
They don't understand. They just think that, itna kya karna hai, bas camera because they are used to doing that. So that has also affected, but again, I think this is continuously in a state of flux, if I may use that phrase, where things are evolving so rapidly in terms of everything. And I think, while there is one thought where people are saying that, photography is dead, there is nothing left in photography. People say that again because they want to distinguish between photography and video, because people think that video is the next thing. Dominating. But again, what I feel is the fundamentals are still, you are still making images. Only thing is, you are maybe making now 24 images or 30 images in a second instead of just making one. So the fundamentals don't change. Right? The other thing that I would, observation that I've made, now this is especially as a teacher, I mean my experience as a teacher, whatever it is जो मैं disparity बोला, while there are people who are doing some amazing work, there are also people who are not really tapping what their potential is. Now, I'm not saying this in terms of skill.
Right.
I'm saying this in terms of what content they can actually bring out, how they can express. They're not really looking at that as much as they should.
Right.
Again, they are going more by influences or trends.
Trends. Yeah.
Or maybe, as we were discussing earlier, which was, we were not recording then, but what we were saying is that people are now, younger people, when they get into photography, they are mostly thinking, rather than expressing their creativity and giving it that full freedom, they are thinking of
earning.
Oh हाँ, इसका use क्या होगा और इससे मुझे पैसा कैसे मिलेगा? What I feel genuinely is that not everything you can look at in terms of monetizing it. Right. If you are in the creative field, the most important thing is that your creativity should keep flowing.
Keep flowing.
So you will have to do things a lot of
Explore
times.
yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you will have to do things which may not really end up in making money for you, but they will definitely help you in when you actually go out to make money from certain projects, you know.
Yeah. So you have to create more creative things through photography.
There also has to be a little more individual approach. See, you as a person are very different. I as a person am very different. We will have, while some of our experiences will be common,
right,
but we will have very different stories to tell. You are of a different age. I am of a different age. You come from a very different region.
Right.
Though India is our country, you come from a very different culture, very different background. I come from a very different culture, very different background.
Right.
So the stories that we potentially have inside us are very different. मैं उसको वो problem young generation में हो रहा है is that they are not trying to seek this inward. ये ज़्यादातर कि अच्छा क्या चल रहा है फैशन में ये ट्रेंडिंग है
तो ये ट्रेंड
तो हाँ तो वो अच्छा स्टिल लाइफ में फूड में ये हो रहा है तो मुझे ये करना है
they don't bring their own
individuality. They don't bring their own life experiences as much as they should. And history of art and photography proves to us that all the artists, even filmmakers, I mean nobody can be excluded from this. All of them are essentially sharing their personal experience. Yes, there is a certain way of packaging it and putting it in front of an audience, like we were discussing earlier. But these are all the stories that they want to tell. These are all coming from their own experiences. So I feel photography is more inward. When you start looking inside, you will start finding those things, which will also differentiate, make your work a little more unique from
everyone.
10 other people.
Yes.
Right? तो वो homogeneity is a little scary. वो जो सब में आ रही है, सब चीजों में वो
सब जो trend एक ही follow कर रहे हैं.
Yeah. See, I want to pick up this shirt in Central Mall. Yeah. I already know there are like 100 of those. No?
Yeah.
तो और वो भी उठाए जाने वाले. Somebody is going to come and pick them up. तो ये जो उन चीजों में पहले ऐसे नहीं होता था ना. I used to go to one small shop. वहाँ पे जो आपको शायद मिलेगा वो बाकी के 10 शॉप में मिलेगा ही नहीं क्योंकि माल उतना है नहीं. Whatever. Of course, let's not digress, but that's I think what it is. So it is important for younger people to look within them and really try to bring out the work. That will not only make the visual stronger, but also very unique. वो उनको भी एक identity देगा as an artist, as a photographer.
So my next question is, which genre of photography is close to your heart and how you experiment there? Who is your role model in this art?
Genre as such is very difficult, because again this is going to sound very extremist when I say that I don't believe really in genres of photography. Why? Because also the way I work, if say I'm making the series about something, say family or my family history or something like that. That's the theme that I'm working on. I will have to make some portraits of my parents, say my daughter, my wife, my grandparents, whoever. I will also have to make maybe, so that's portrait photography. Traditionally, if you have to classify it into a genre. I will also be taking pictures probably of my ancestral home.
Right.
You know, maybe the place where my ancestors first not landed, I would say, because but where 6 generations ago where we were living. What village we were. Yes. I may go to that place. I may do some landscapes.
Right.
So landscape photography. If I'm actually shooting in my home, I'm doing maybe interior architecture or spaces.
Spaces.
I may have some, everybody, all of us, I think, has some kind of family treasures.
Right.
Some things that have been passed down through generations.
Family.
Yeah. So I'm making images of those objects. So that's still life. So I mean, this is a project, say I'm working for on 6 months' time, and I have kind of used 4 or 5 genres of photography within that.
So you choose different types.
Yeah, it again depends on what your idea is,
right.
What your theme is, what content you are trying to generate through the image, or
what you want to storytell.
Yeah. Then these things come. But yes, still, if you ask, I would admit here that I'm not very comfortable photographing people unless those people are someone who I know really closely. So I'm absolutely comfortable photographing anybody from my family, my close friends, that I'm very comfortable with. But yeah, if you suddenly ask me go out on the street and get 10 portraits done, that is a little uncomfortable space for me. As far as photographers or artists who I look up to, so many of them. I mean, it's
like name 1 or 2.
All these names that we have taken so far on this podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want me to name a few of them very quickly, then there is Stephen Shore, there is William Eggleston, Gregory Crewdson is one who we discussed. There is Uta Barth, she's a German-born photographer who works in the US. There is Andre Cortez, of course, who I'm following very closely right now because in his last years, he used the Polaroid camera a lot. So I'm referring to that right now as far as my current work is concerned. Yeah, so many of them. There is somebody like Sally Mann who has photographed my family very, very closely. And these are different things, you know, like somebody like Curtis is so, what can you say, so prolific with the shooting. You know? One, he uses 35mm, he will use something like a Polaroid, like I said. So there is planning. I mean, there is a series of Polaroids that he has done, which again, if you have to classify it into a genre, it is still life. But the theme that he is tackling is very different. It was after his wife's death that he did these photographs. So you will see that sadness, you will see that aspect of missing someone very dear to you in those images as a story. But they're still life images because these are just these 2 glass busts that he has photographed.
Same as Sally Mann maybe.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, that Sally Mann is very different in terms of the craft, in terms of the technique that she uses. So she's someone who makes her own glass negatives. So to make one single photograph, that's a laborious process for her. You know?
She also uses, I think, expired films.
She does that, yeah. Now, expired films also, because the themes that she is addressing through her work is about death and decay and dying and things like that. So it only makes sense, no? Expired film is a dead film.
Dead film.
So you are starting with a stock, a material. That itself is dead. So, see, conceptually how deep she's thinking. Deep is not again the word that I want to use here. But yeah, look at the detail that these artists are thinking about. You know, why? There is a reason for everything. Why use expired film for a certain project? She also says the same thing about when she makes her own glass negatives by pouring the collodion. that's not always perfect. No, there are imperfections in it. Sometimes there will be places where the color wheel doesn't spread properly. So she keeps all these imperfections.
Right, sir. So my next question is, please walk us through your journey of voiceover artist, how it started, which projects you did, and what you are forthcoming.
So voiceover is something that actually started just as a hobby, and I'm very inexperienced in that field as of now. I'll tell you exactly how it started. Um, there was my ex-student only. He had to shoot a film for his college project, and that film was not a one-shot film, but a one-character film they were asked to do, and they had to shoot based on a script that was given to them. And so all these students who were doing it, three, four of them, had thought that, oh, for when I shoot this film, a voiceover is probably the right way of option of saying whatever had to be said, whatever the narration was. So what happened was these two guys came to me at the same time saying that, sir, this is the project that we have, and we want you to do the voiceover for this. And so I said, no, but all of us, I think, when we hear ourselves, it sounds very strange.
Very weird,
Yeah, it sounds very weird because we are not really used to hear ourselves, our voice being recorded. So I said, no, I sound very weird. So he was like, no, sir, your voice is like really, bass bhi hai isme, ye bhi hai. I'm like, what are you saying? My voice has bass. He said, yeah, we listen to you continuously when you're lecturing. And he said that you have that, and your voice has a certain convincing power also. So then I started thinking about it. That probably when they're saying, because what happened is when he came and said this, then in the next couple of classes while I was lecturing, I suddenly started noticing that. How am I saying certain things? Where am I laying the emphasis? What is happening? And then I realized, maybe they are right. So I said to him, okay, let's do it. Now that was something very heavy Urdu stuff that he had written. So then I said, okay, let's give it a shot. So tried that. That voiceover happened. And then what happened was, this is very, very filmy. I went and played it to my parents. Right. And coincidentally, what was happening there, my father and I were discussing about something, and we were talking about Gulzar Saab, how he narrates things. And my dad was saying, I really like his voice. So then that was the point when I said, okay, speaking of voice, here is something that I want you to listen. So I just played it for him. And he said, wow, this is so nice. And somehow he thought it was Gulzar Saab narrating. So I said, where did you find this? And this is Gulzar, no? I said, no, this is me. So he said, wow. So, of course, it was not really that good. That was the father in him that was. Right. But then I said, okay, so this is also good. Yeah. So then the other student who had come, I did the voiceover for him also. So they were actually given a theme and they had to write something based on that. Right. So both of them had different passages, but both were in Hindi. So I did that. And then, since childhood, I have been mimicking my teachers and these things, friends also, So everybody said to me that, yeah, you have this talent, you have this talent. But I had never really given it a serious thought. After this happened, then I said, okay, I can explore this. I don't know what happened. So when Roop, this student, he played this voiceover to the other people, they were also, Are kiski awaaz hai, kiski awaaz hai? Sir. So then a few more students, sir, hamare film ke liye bhi try, hamare film ke liye bhi try. So it started like that. And then I started enjoying it. Right. So then I said, okay, I should take some formal training. So I started looking for it. Then a friend of mine who's into photography and cinematography now, Nina, his very good friend actually, Siddharth, he is into voice acting since a long time. Right. So Nina said, if you are looking into this, then I had met Siddharth once or twice before. but I had never known of his profession also. It just met like there's a ghost, a friend का friend मिलता है कहीं चाय पी लिया कॉफी पी लिया वैसे मिलते. And when I suddenly remembered, so Siddharth was a very deep and very peace. That is how he normally talks. So then I was like, yeah, yeah. So then I listened to a couple of things that he had done. Then I spoke to him. I said, you training? He said, yeah, I will do it very casually. I'll give you a couple of projects also on the side, and that's how we roll. And then I really enjoyed the entire process of the training. And we had classes which were very random. Like it used to happen as per my convenience, my time, his convenience, and all those things. But I really enjoyed that process. Then we went into the studio, recorded a couple of things and all those. So then I started doing this. So now what has happened is mostly what I have done so far in terms of work is giving voiceovers for student films or college films that we do. I have done a couple of corporate films, corporate videos जो रहते हैं. For that I have done one or two small cartoon kind of films. Yeah, animated films. But they were like really 3-4 lines. Now, because I'm planning to get more into this, I've put it out also to the people who I know who are in this field that I'm now available full time. Of course, having now I have a lot of free time on my hand. So then they were also very encouraging. They asked for a few samples again. So things are now rolling. I actually, after we are done with this, I'll be recording a couple of samples. That is for an NGO who are doing stuff into some historical documentaries and some other things also, corporate videos and business videos. So they have sent me a couple of samples for which I have recorded. So that's how it is going ahead. So let's see. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I keep getting this response to abhi tak acha hai. But as we have been speaking, for anything, it takes a little bit of time for you to actually establish yourself. And then the money factor to start, you really to start earning from it. It's like photography only. You just can't say, I photography pad liya, abhi bahar aa gaya, and I started charging like 1.5 lakh, 2 lakhs a day. So it is like that. So I'm in that process right now. But really enjoying thoroughly whatever I'm doing.
My next question is, which books and movies inspire you as photographer and why?
Again, these are questions that are very difficult to answer because films, I like to watch all kinds of films. But again, film or movie is such a medium that what I look for in it is how effective the story is. And then all these are, again, as we were speaking about photography also, all the things that you use in making the film are tools to effectively say that story. So in terms of films, I usually like simple films that what you can probably term as slice of the life films that kind of tell very realistic stories. I don't really like something that is, say for example, Marvel. I have not watched a single film because that's not something that I'm really fond of. Fantasy, sci-fi. That's not something that I like. I really like stories which I can relate to very quickly. What I see happening around me,
like war movies, maybe.
War movies, yes. See now again, when you talk about war movies, there are movies which are actually talking about showing you the war and the conflict and a lot of things associated with it. And there are films which are showing what is happening around that because of the war and things. So say an example like Bicycle Thieves, a film like Bicycle Thieves. Saving Private Ryan. But Saving Private Ryan again is still too much. I like that film, no doubt. But that is again proper into the war. We are into the war. But Bicycle Thieves is a film of the impact that the war has had on society. The unemployment, the poverty, or I mean, lack of food and starvation and all those things coming because of that. So now those are the kind of films that would appeal to me much more. But again, all kinds of films, even books, all kinds of books. Generally, it's a very difficult um, answer to give. Like
So
what are the two books or three books that inspired you?
so like you read books related to do growth or
No, I don't really read self-help books, to be honest. Uh, Nothing against people who love them or write them for that matter, or read them or follow them,
so
whatever.
fiction or non-fiction?
Fiction. I usually like fiction.
Right.
I would read non-fiction also, but not something that is very in-your-face motivation. Because I feel those books just have very less to say and they keep on saying the same thing over and over and over again. So I have tried that also, but I get bored by very quickly those kind of books. Because I'm like even something like Monk Who Sold His Ferrari is like, okay, I get it, what you want to say. And this is, I mean, not criticizing because I'm not at that level to be criticizing anything. This is just because it's not something that I like to do.
Next question is how you see the world from the view.
Is this the last question that is the most difficult one?
Not yet.
I don't know how to answer that. You just help me out here. What you have in mind when you are asking that question?
Like, as a photographer, how do you see the world through your viewfinder while taking pictures or seeing the world, what you have to capture?
I think it's the other way around. No? It's how you see the world. Like I said, it's about the stories and your experiences that you want to narrate. So for me, it is not about seeing it through the viewfinder. It is what you actually see and experience, trying to put it into the viewfinder. Right? If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
See, these days, yes, I do shoot randomly also, like random times when I go out. But also the other things are mostly planned. So these are based on some experiences, something that I have seen. And just to give you an example, one of the series that I did, this is my initial work, and I was talking to one of my friends the other day about that. Now this was when I actually went to the US to do my MFA, and I learned that my wife is not getting the visa and she won't be joining me there. So after that, there was this phase of where one, I was very emotional, very sensitive. It was a very traumatic period as such. But yeah, I also thought that this is probably one of the best opportunities to make some work about it also. So I shot a series of self-portraits actually. And it was referenced, the style of shooting, the visual aesthetic of it was coming from a photographer that I named earlier, Right. Now she has a series or many series of images where she, actually all her images, I mean just to cut the long story short, they are out focus images. She has her reasons for doing it. We won't get into that. But that aesthetic of shooting a blurry or an out of focus image